Hey. Time for another out of this world story from rSpace. When your spouse's online co-op mode turns into a solo mission, see how one husband turned a virtual betrayal into a real-life game over. Today on rSpace, Ready Player 3. My video game obsessed partner got too close to an online friend. She cheated, so I destroyed her work life. We live in very modern times, and as a result, it has become important for us to be able to redefine what counts as cheating. Technology presents a lot of interesting interpretations of the definition of that word, which I think used to be pretty clear-cut. This is just me musing a bit. Let me get into what the actual details are so you can understand me better and the conundrum I'm currently forced with. I, 31 male, have been married to my wife, 29 female, for just about 3 years now. We met 5 years ago at a local restaurant. She was sitting at a booth behind me, and I could hear the jokes that she kept making with her friends. I felt like she was extremely funny, and I think I fell for her personality before I ever turned around and saw her face. It was that day that I got her number, and things took off from there. Anyway, one thing that I definitely have to mention about my wife is that she absolutely loves video games. I mean, I do too, but she's certainly on another level than the one I'm on. Game pun intended. Her favorite game to play is Valorant, which she got started on about 2 years ago, and since then, she's just gotten sucked into it. To be honest, at certain points, I feel like she might be into the game a bit too much. It has caused a few arguments between us, and there have been moments where she's been able to disconnect. But most times around, she just seems obsessed with it. I know you'll be saying that I should have spotted that red flag from the start, but honestly, as a video game guy myself, I liked that she liked games, and it honestly wasn't this bad before she got into Valorant. Yes, she's spending several hours per session, but that wasn't most days of the week. That game just seemed to be the one that grabbed her entirely. At a point, I liked it, and we played together a lot, especially at the start. But with work and life and all other responsibilities that life presents, I had to eventually leave her to play on her own. Quite naturally, she eventually made some online friends to play with, and that's the major reason that I'm here. So, one of her online friends, let's christen him Caleb, seems to be the one online friend that she's the closest to. I'll say about 90% of the time that she plays Valorant, she plays it with Caleb. When she has to go through a session without him, she's always in less of a great mood, which is rather annoying sometimes, but I can't say that I don't understand how playing the game is also sort of a social experience for her, and doing it without the right person doesn't make it as good. But my misunderstanding it still doesn't exempt it from giving me concerns. There have been times when I've walked by the room and heard her giggling incessantly with Caleb, and maybe I'm insecure, but I don't like the way it makes me feel. It certainly gives me a lot of concern, and sometimes it feels like this online friend of hers is too important a male in her life. I've always been very wary of the whole male best friend thing because I've been burned by it before. So, a day came when I decided to be mature and talk to her about it. So I sat her down and I asked her whether she had a crush on Caleb. She seemed appalled at the concept, but she claimed that she understood. She then spent the next 30 minutes or so explaining the relationship and doing her best to massage me and make me feel better. When that happened, I really appreciated it because it was hard to express the level of concern I started to have, and I believed her right there. Well, that relief lasted for several months, until recently. It's not like I intend to eavesdrop, but with her headphones on, I think my wife sometimes doesn't realize how loud she speaks at times. I heard her screaming happily, and then she said, "When will you be in town?" It didn't take me any special brain power to figure out what she meant by that. Caleb is coming to town, and it's hard to express the emotions I felt in that moment. I think there was a lot of panic. That was probably the predominant emotion. It always felt safe enough with this guy at the other end of the country, but the fact that he was coming to our city was a problem. It was too close for comfort for me. Here's the problem. She hasn't told me yet, and I haven't confronted her either. I don't want to end up making the wrong move because my initial instinct is to forbid her from seeing him, so if he wants to come exclusively for her, he can save himself the trip. I think that might be too forceful a move, which is the major reason why I want to make sure I'm doing the right thing, and that's what I've come to ask for help for. Should I just let it happen and hope that she'll be a good girl? Should I follow them around town? Or should I just say no and hope that she listens? I hate how paranoid the entire thing is making me. So, I'm open to all the advice that I can get. And if you've been in a similar situation, I'd love to know how you might have handled it. I'll be reading all the comments and I hope to reply to as many of them as I can. Thank you all for reading. Edit. A lot of people are saying that I should have stood my ground more when I talked with her about Caleb. But honestly, knowing that more men generally play online shooters than women, if I got her not to talk to Caleb, there'd be an Andrew or a Richard next. I decided to take her word for it, and as it stands, none of us can really say that there's anything more than her friendship. I'd also want to eventually meet a longtime online friend, so I don't blame her for that. I'm pretty sure he knows she's married too, not that that stops anything. Edit 2. I've decided that I'm going to talk to her and tell her that I don't want her to go and meet him. I won't forbid her absolutely, but I will make it very clear how I feel. I hope that if Caleb tries to make a move on her, she'll be extra aware of how wrong anything she might want to do is. That's all I can hope for. She can respect my feelings by not going, or she can express her right to freedom. I will let you all know how it goes. Edit 3. Well, I spoke to her about it. She eventually came forward herself, a day after, to tell me that Caleb was going to be coming to our city in about 2 weeks. I replied with a, "That's nice," and there was a bit of an awkward silence before she added, "We're planning to meet up." I didn't say anything to that right away because I was trying to think of the best response, but before I said anything, she added, "We've been friends for over 2 years now, so it'd be nice to see him." It was nice at that point that I finally said, "I'd prefer if you didn't," and she seemed shocked. I told her that I didn't feel comfortable with their relationship, especially because I had no idea what his intentions were. I asked whether there was an alternative reason why he was coming around or whether it was just for her, and there was a pause before she said, "He likely has other things to do here." That made it clear that she wasn't even sure that she wasn't the sole reason for him coming around. I repeated that I didn't know what his intentions were with her, and she said, "We're just friends and he knows that I have a husband." In my head, I knew that obviously wouldn't stop anyone who really wanted to do something with her, but I was tired of the conversation. I just told her, "I'm politely asking you not to go because I don't feel comfortable with it." She flared up at me and said, "And I'm politely refusing. I'm going to go regardless of what you say." That was the end of the conversation, and now I'm waiting for the day her friend will be in town. When that day comes, I will let you all know. First off, kudos for recognizing the modern aspect of cheating. Who knew that getting wrecked in Valorant could have a whole new meaning? Yikes. Your wife's love for the game might be genuine, but when she's giggling like a kid on a sugar high and talking about Caleb's visit, it's only natural for you to wonder if he's planning a surprise raid on your marriage, which he likely is. So how about this for a plan? Offer to team up with your wife and Caleb for a game night. Nothing says, "I'm cool with his friendship," like being the third wheel in a virtual shootout. Make sure you're not getting played in real life there, OP. Update 1. It's me again, the guy who came with the story of his wife who was big on playing Valorant and then felt a kind of way about her very close relationship with an online friend called Caleb. The big issue came when she absolutely insisted that she was going to meet up with him when he came to our city, which was something that made me feel very uncomfortable. I tried to stop it from happening because the entire thing made me uncomfortable, but she said she was going to see him regardless of what I thought or said. Well, I let go and allowed her to do what she wanted. When the day finally came, the mood in the house was clearly tense, and when it was time to leave, she just said, "I'm off," before leaving the house. I was really pissed off, but I decided to keep calm as much as I could. I tried to figure out what I could do to spy on her and figure out what her day was going to be like, but I knew I'd just need to wait until she came back and ask her. Well, when she came back several hours later, I think she was out for about 7 hours, I saw her open the door looking happy, and as soon as she saw me, her face dropped and she was suddenly irritated. I tried to be receptive and I asked how her day with Caleb was. She said it was fine, and then headed to the room to take a shower. That certainly made me suspicious. Maybe it's a bit of trope that people who just cheated go straight to the shower. I had a strong urge to check her phone while she was in the shower, but I snuck around and looked for it everywhere. But it seems she took it with her into the bathroom. That certainly seemed off, as I was sure she almost never did that. It's like she was trying to cover her tracks. When she was done in the bathroom, I tried to restart the conversation and get more from her about her day, but she was very unreceptive to everything I was saying. The mood was still off, and I was anything but in the mood for an argument that night, so I simply went to bed for the day. She eventually came to bed and sat up, texting all night. I wasn't asleep yet, but she thought that I was. Eventually, she went to sleep, and as soon as I heard her snoring, I decided to do what I had been waiting for. With how aware I felt she was of her phone, I knew that I wouldn't have been able to sleep after her, or if I did, her phone would have ended up under her pillow or somewhere it'd be hard for me to snoop through. She let her guard down though, and I was able to get up and out of bed and grab her smartphone. I normally wouldn't have even attempted this if I didn't know that she was a very heavy sleeper. I was confident enough that I didn't even need to leave the bedroom to check through her phone. I was able to do everything I needed to do from the bed, and trust me, I found literally everything that I was afraid to find. I went straight to Discord first, because that's where she'd likely have the richest chat history with Caleb, and I was right on the money. That was when I saw a very recent set of messages from that night after she had come back home. It started with her saying that she had a great time, and then he replied similarly, but then added a very, very good time after, with a winking emoji after. She replied with laughing emojis, and then he said, I should come by your city more often. She put more laughing emojis and then said, it might not happen again, but it was definitely good. I think the fact that you're married is what makes it even hotter for me. Well, I won't deny that. There was something rebellious in me, knowing that he tried to forbid me from seeing you. It just made everything so much sexier because it was so obviously taboo, you know? Yep, I definitely know, which is why I know we'll get this to happen again. All I need to do is bring myself to your town a lot more. I certainly have a reason to now. Then more laughing emojis from her. We'll talk in the morning. One last thing, I took this in the shower for you, and then a nude. And that was it. I was infuriated. I honestly was so pissed off that I couldn't even focus on what I had planned to do on her phone next. I sat there for like 5 minutes, the phone in my hand, my head just blank with anger. But I eventually snapped out of it and quickly went straight to her Google Maps. I checked her timeline there and was able to see that she went straight from our house to a hotel, and she stayed there the entire day. She didn't do anything else with him, and I knew she would lie if I grilled her, so I documented that too. I did try to just glance through her earlier conversation on Discord, but it was a lot of Valorant talk, and I felt like I was working on limited time. I quickly documented that night's conversation though. I knew there was more I could check on her phone, but I felt like I had seen a lot more than I wanted to. I was so angry in that moment. I returned the phone and just went back to my business. That was it for the night. I wasn't able to sleep the entire time. I wanted to take my time and ask you all how you feel like I should proceed, but my anger got the better of me. In the morning, as soon as she woke up, I lifted her up in bed so she was sitting up. She looked extremely shocked. I told her right there that I knew that she had slept with Caleb and that I'd slap her right there if she made the foolish decision to lie to my face. She looked frightened, and that look of fear pleased me a lot more than I'd like to admit. It is what it is though. She admitted that she did it, but there was no crying or pleading because she knew that would only make me angrier, especially because I had already made my suspicions extremely clear. So I told you that I didn't want you to see him because I was afraid of what his intentions might be. You decided to disregard my concerns, and then you went to meet him at his hotel, slept with him, said that you liked it even more because you were defying me, and you even sent him a nude. You know that there's nowhere else for us to go but divorce, don't you? She looked so defeated because there was no way she could gaslight me or lie to me at that moment. It was evident I had seen her phone, and she knew it would be stupid to try and flip the script. Despite the situation, I was actually very pleased at how well the entire thing had turned out in my favor. Forbidding her from going and her doing the exact thing I was scared she'd do left her utterly toothless in this whole thing. I told her that she had to get out immediately. I gave her 10 minutes to pack some things because I didn't want her to return to the house for any reason whatsoever in the near future. I told her that I'd go get the divorce papers to her, and it was in her best interest not to make the entire process long and drawn out. The sooner we finish up with this, the sooner you can be with Caleb, since that was worth your marriage. Throughout the whole thing, she was mute. Well, as of now, I have sent the divorce papers over to her, and I'm just waiting for her to sign, which should hopefully happen within the next week. I want to be so done with this, honestly. I'll be back with an update if there's any to be had. It's a tough situation, and you've certainly navigated it with a mix of sleuthing and stoicism. If there's any silver lining here, it's that you have clarity now, even if it came with a hefty emotion price. For moving forward, it seems like you've already decided to cut the ties and move on. The process might be painful, but it sounds like you're taking the right steps to protect your own sanity and well-being. I hope the next chapter of your life brings you better experiences and a little less drama, though who knows, maybe you'll find yourself in a new game with a much better outcome. Update 2. So if you remember me, I'm the guy who came here with a story of his wife who loved playing Valorant and had an online friend called Caleb, who I forbid her from seeing when she came into town. But she still did, and when she did, they slept together. Yep, that's me. And I'm thankfully here with the very last update to this entire story. I never would have imagined this is how our relationship would come to a close, but I'm glad that it has. I eventually got the divorce papers signed and returned within the week that I had sent them to her, and I sent them to my divorce lawyer that very next day so that we could get the process started right away. Well, when the divorce process started, she was being as obstinate as she could be. She had rolled over when I accused her, and even when it came to getting through the preliminary divorce things, but now she decided to frustrate me. I knew that when I came out of this, I was going to make sure that I got back at her good. I had been ready to make divorce my only revenge, but now I had more in mind. It took way longer than I hoped it would, but we eventually got through the entire divorce process, and it was basically all in my favor. We hadn't been married for too long, and in that time, she had decided to cheat on me with a person I clearly expressed my worries about. And there was no remorse at the end of it all. Her frustrating me to the point we had to go in front of a judge also didn't make things any better in that judge's eyes. He was a real one, since I basically got the cleanest break one can imagine. No alimony, I got the house and our shared car, and I got to laugh in her face when everything was settled. You know how companies talk about how you shouldn't share confidential information with anyone, even your partner? But most people still do because they trust their partners to keep that info safe? Well, I thankfully had chat logs of when she had told me about some major things happening in her company, like big news, and based on that information, she had made some undisclosed stock purchases. I didn't have evidence of the latter, but I knew that her company would be able to do their own investigations, so I shared everything concrete that I had with them. Their treasured employee wasn't being confidential, and she was also an insider trader? As expected, her job didn't survive that, and I found out when she called me screaming that I had ruined her life. She called me every single name in the book, and funny enough, I didn't feel a twinge of guilt or pain. I was very, very entertained by the entire thing, in fact. It felt good, and I was glad I had gotten something back. The best part is that I know with this kind of behavior on her record, her next job won't necessarily be easy to obtain. All of this after not needing to pay alimony too. So, as badly as our marriage might have ended, I finally got sweet revenge, and it sort of made up for the pain that she put me through. I'm glad everything is over, and I hope to never have to worry about her again. You turned a painful chapter into a powerful play, and from the sound of it, you're closing the book with a sense of triumph. Getting the house, the car, and no alimony. Talk about scoring a trifecta. Cheers to moving on and enjoying your well-earned peace. Do you have a similar story? Share it with us in the comments below. Thank you for joining us today on rSpace. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Until next time.